Wyland.
Here. Approval of minutes from previous meeting, September 23rd, 2024. Motion by Ermeline. A second. Second by Clark. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. Number 5, any public comments? Any online? Number 6, we have educational presentation report from Eau Claire River feasibility study.
So we have Dan Borkert from MSA, and we have Mark Thill from the city of Schofield here to present the findings of the feasibility study that was completed early this year. Pretty early this year.
Starting last October, we did some of the wetland and trail layout, and the wetland delineation was done last fall. But so yeah, this is just a trail connection that City of Schofield's kind of hoping to make connections with other jurisdictions, and this was, you know, something that we've kind of been planning and working with the MPO back in the bike and pedestrian committee of the MPO, and it was a trail layout that we kind of had as, you know, on our bike ped plan. Marathon MPO did, Marathon County had it on there, and I know Weston has kind of reviewed and considered this trail connection somewhat feasible. So with that, knowing whether or not it even come to fruition, we wanted to create this study and find out whether or not what obstacles and what, you know, what hurdles we'd have to overcome in order to make this, if we even move forward with it, and what the costs are. And so knowing that, we applied for the TAP funding, and then we were awarded. So contracted with MSA to do the feasibility study, and they have all the details as far as wetlands and floodplains and soil conditions and obstacles that we have to overcome. So I'll let Dan kind of take it over and keep it short. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mark. How good is this mic at picking up audio? Is this close enough, or should I have it?
Should be good.
Should be good. Okay. Thank you. As Mark had indicated, this project is funded in part by the DOT. As part of the DOT funded project, they got involved with the scoping. The scope was to evaluate 3 different alternatives. The no-build alternative would be continue to use Grand Avenue as the transportation corridor for bike and pedestrians. The first alternative would be to build a 660-foot bridge on the east side of the railroad bridge. So this study area encompasses from the end of Grossman Drive all the way to Kent Street and the recreational complex for Marathon County, all the way over to Camp Phillips Road, and includes basically, you know, what connections can be made that would benefit all the communities involved with this project. So it was really looking holistic at the different needs there. As far as project goes, 3 alternatives. We talked about a bridge on the east side, a bridge on the west side. Is that automatically flipping?
I was trying to code like the alternatives because I know they're in here. So if you're, yeah.
I would just start from the beginning. We'll get up to, I'm kind of playing, setting the background for what's going on here. So no build alternative, bridge on the east side of the railroad bridge, and an east or bridge on the west side. The bridge on the east side would be about 660 feet long, and the bridge on the west side would be shorter. However, you would need a raised section of elevated section of bridge in order to get up to it and create some elevation clearance for the trail to get under it. So as part of this, we reviewed community planning documents, we reviewed site conditions, trail design and alternatives, structures that would be needed, construction access, emergency access and safety access, utilities that would be impacted, as well as railroad coordination, and involved a public involvement process. Looked at the costs for each alternative and proposed bike map routing when all said and done, possible project schedule, funding sources, and then kind of wrap it up with any questions. Next slide. So the planning study, as I outlined, what comes within that square that you see up there, for those of you that are familiar with the area along the Eau Claire River, in the main bridge connection, you kind of see the railroad corridor right center, where the project size gets a little bit longer north and south. And that would be where the locations of the bridge would go. Next slide. So DOT is funding this in part because of all the safety issues. So Grand Ave receives about 17,000 to 23,000 cars a day. And they find that there's been a lot of pedestrian incidents, crashes, and, people getting hurt and even killed, on Business 51. So they're looking at this as an alternate corridor. The need to link trail systems, right now, it'd be hard for anybody, I think, in the room to raise their hand and say, friends from out of town take Grand Ave to get to downtown Wausau with your kids, no problem navigating that route. I think the bike and trail map is misleading to anybody who would come and say that that is an advisable route for bike and pedestrian traffic. So it would also improve the community quality of life, have, places to recreate, tourism, increase tourism. There would be, parents would have less stress with their kids not biking, 2 feet from a car whizzing by them along Grand Ave. And providing that dedicated bike trail system that improves the overall communities that are connected to it. Next slide, Jamie. These are the community planning documents that we reviewed as an introduction to this and kind of what has transpired. As Mark talked about, this is a goal in the city of Schofield. Bike and ped plan, but it's also named in several other plans with the Wausau MPO bike and ped plan that was already completed. City of Wausau has several plans that refer to this Grand Ave corridor, as well as the River Edge master plan showing connections to where this bridge would lead on the north side. Village of Weston has planning documents that reference connections to Wausau and improved connections in this area as well. Next slide, Jamie. So that MPO reviewed the project from 2009 to 2014. You can see from the mapping, high level of stress and a significant amount of crashes that were reported in that study that was done by MPO. And our crash evaluation took off after 2014 when we were doing this study. So next slide, Jamie. Schofield's plan talked about dead ending at Grossman Drive and looking for that connection to Weston and City of Wausau. On the right, you have the connecting the gaps and Wausau's plan to bring people down the along the recreational complex. So a planning document that shows they want to provide more access to the conservancy that's down there and bring people that direction. Next slide, Jamie. Village of Weston planning documents for Park and Rec show that connectivity to Wausau in this area. It also shows a potential connection to Schofield, without any bridge there. But Yellow Banks Park is a big park for the village and showing those connectivity. Slide, Jamie. So evaluating existing site conditions, looking at the crash data, the trail routing, wetland delineation, and what we call a hydrologic and hydraulic study. So reviewing the river elevations and the fluctuations of the river were important to determining the feasibility. Next slide, Jamie. Crash data, since 2014, there's been 24 crashes involving bicyclists, 14 bicyclists, 10 pedestrians. 2 fatalities were reported. 67% of crashes occurred during daylight hours. And you can kind of see the statistics there. There's ranges of cyclists from 13 to 62, and then pedestrians from 13 to 70. So a wide variety of users using this corridor. Next slide, Jamie. Trail routing, this was reviewed in the field last October with Wausau Park and Recs director, as well as the property owners that own property along here. So there are private property owners that this trail would have to navigate through. And so we looked at trying to work with the property owners on a location where they would feel comfortable with the trail. Because this project, you can't condemn for trail work in Wisconsin. And so in order for this to be a feasible project, they have to be on board with allowing you to cross their property and sign off on easements for it. So it was all, the trail route was flagged, the points were collected with GPS, and those are the alignments that you see on your maps. Railroad coordination was another big item to determine if this was a feasible project or not, and seeing what they would allow. And come to find out when we get later onto the alternatives, one solution is going to be preferred by the railroad versus another. Next slide, Jamie. Wetland delineations, 21 wetlands over 4.4 acres were delineated along the corridor. There would be, permitting with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on this project, as well as other regulatory agencies to get a bridge across there with the piers and not impacting the wetlands. Is kind of trails you can't fill for a trail within a wetland, so it'd be a boardwalk, which is an expensive component to trail building. Basically a wooden deck to hover above these environmentally sensitive areas. Next slide. So the H&H study, so the hydrologic and hydraulic study, was determined to determine the bridge elevation. This was done with a sonar mite, and it was determined that with this process, alternative 2, which is on the west side of the railroad bridge, created a raise in the floodplain elevation, which is a no-no by the DNR and Army Corps, just because of all the pew structures with that elevated structure to get it across there. Next slide. The trail design follows the Wisconsin Bike and Ped Handbook, which is basically a 10-foot wide trail with 2-foot wide shoulders and a clear zone of 3 feet on each side. So you're looking at a swath for the trail of about 16 feet all the way through. It also has to meet ADA, which is American Disabilities Act, for grades and width and railing requirements. So all the safety and basically all-inclusive access for anybody with a wheelchair need to be accounted for with this type of project. Next slide. We briefly discussed the routes. Alternative 1 was the bridge on the east side, which would be 658. Alternative 2 would be 845 feet of elevated structure. The Wassa connector would come from the north end of the bridge in either alternative up to the recreational complex. And then the Weston connector would be all the way from the north end of the bridge to Camp Sturtevant. Slide. And this is a visual of what alternative 1 looks like. The purple trail that you see on there is the Wassa connector. The orange trail is the Weston connector. Then you can see there's a light colored teal trail that is connecting the end of Grossman Drive, where Schofield has a trail coming up to. And that teal section also goes underneath the railroad bridge in that space because the city has public lands on the west side of the river. So they're looking, if they make a connection under the bridge on one side, they would like to also make one on the south side of the railroad bridge as well. Slide. Alternative 2, you can see the candy cane looking line work. That line work represents the raised section of trail in order for the orange trail to get under there. In this case, alternative 2, the orange is still the Weston connector. The purple is still the Wassa connector, and then the teal you can see is a little bit longer, and that's the Schofield connector section. What we found when talking with the railroad on this alternative was that this bridge would land too close to their existing bridge, which is on a spread footing, and they felt that vibrations would potentially shift or slide their railroad truss bridge as a result of construction. It also resulted in an increased amount of cost because of a crane being able to fall on their tracks. They felt that flagging, you would have an excess duration of flagging from the railroad, which is very expensive per day. It's like $1,300 a day to have them observe the construction site and make sure that it's free of obstruction for train traffic. So the other one veered away, alternative 1 veered away from this. From the railroad, and at north end, you won't need any flagging. So you kind of get out of that extra expense with alternative 1. All right, next slide. In total, real estate needs, as I mentioned, this project can't condemn for trail, but the difference between alternative 1 and 2 is that the DOT would make you buy property on the north end to land the bridge. Whereas alternative 2 is the bridge would land on public property. The south end would be Schofield, the north end would be Wassa property. And so the property real estate acquisition was slightly less, but I would say it's negligible in the overall totals. Wetland disturbance in either situation or either alternative are pretty close to each other. We still got to cross in a lot of the same areas where the crossing for the wetlands is narrowest. Slide. Structure wise, there's the pedestrian bridge itself, which is the big structure we've been talking about, but there's also a northwest stream crossing. And in that center picture, you can see the northwest stream is kind of a backwater to the Eau Claire River. It's about a 50-foot span bridge that would also be included with the connections. Railroad underpass bridge, you can see the railroad recently did work on their bridge, improving the piers. And they put a diagonal bracing in there, and we would actually have, the railroad would redesign that diagonal bracing for us to put a box culvert through that space. And we'd be able to get through there is the solution that they preferred. With the structures involved, there would be a significant amount of geotech exploration work that would happen before the project. So there'd be expenses up front to get the drill rig back there, find out where bedrock is and what the soils are. There'd be, costs in retaining walls, and then just the construction duration. The bridge decking, in order to make it lighter so we can have a longer span, would be what's called an FRP material, fiberglass reinforced polymer decking, which would make it lighter than the concrete decking that you would have on, for instance, the Rothschild pedestrian bridge down there. Fun. Construction access maintenance emergency. So this has to be designed for 20,000-pound loading on the bridge for emergency access. Construction access would come off of Northwestern primarily and the Grossman Drive area. But there'd still need to be a temporary road built in for staging and construction access that we accounted for in the cost. We'd also have municipalities ongoing create a maintenance agreement. Lighting was not evaluated. It was discussed early on in the planning meeting for the project, but wasn't included, but we included an allowance as part of this project for future lighting evaluation. Next slide. Construction access that we just talked about, you can see the light green line extending to the north of the bridge, and that would be a staging area in the black. We also have causeway and temporary bridge work. So on the island, you can see there's the pink represents timber matting that we accounted for. The yellow represents a temporary bridge, and the teal or light blue that's right next to the bridge represents a built out causeway into the river in order to build the piers. Next slide, Jamie. Utilities, we found that there's not much for utility conflicts out there with this project. Utilities weren't really having any issues with the feasibility of this project. Railroad coordination, we talked about they would have to redesign their underpass, or for us to put an underpass in. Their concerns with the bridge footings. They had concerns with temporary track outages and the impacts that would be necessary for alternative 2. This would have to get approved in 3 locations by the officer or commissioner of railroads. So the 2 underpasses would require communities to petition to OCR, as well as the crossing at Camp Sturtevant. They would put in any temporary construction access crossings, and so we had to account for that the crossing by off of Northwestern as well. We had a public involvement meeting in the middle of June or July. We had about 21 people. There was some people that had opposing thoughts because of the cost, environmental impacts, but then there was also a lot of people that felt that this would be used by many and appreciated by many. So the comments generally ranged on this. And then, of course, WSDOT coordination, as they provided oversight, so they're reviewing the draft report that was prepared and created. Slides. Our cost estimates include all the general cost of just doing construction, mobilization, getting equipment there, construction costs itself, materials and labor, contingency for the site, geotech investigations, site constraints, geology and wetlands. It accounts for design engineering, construction engineering, legal and administrative reviews for this, WSDOT review, real estate related costs, and just the cost of inflation, knowing that the project is projected to be several years into the future. Next slide. So in total, alternative 1 came in around 19.2 million. And alternative two was about $22 million for the bridge. You look at the impacts to users and you look at like the Green Heck Turner facility that was $35 million. And, you know, this is a project that, you know, would potentially affect as many or more people. Just given the amount of people that say they want to bike, hike or walk, for recreation, versus going to like an athletic facility like, Green Heck Turner. The other aspect that the DOT is looking at is we have 2 people killed in the last, 10 years on this corridor, and they value life at $10 million a person. And that's how they assess their crashes at intersections and decide if HISP funding or safety funding should be improved. And so you look at the overall cost, and we're already, looking at the value of life. If we don't build anything, that's going to continue to increase over time. Next slide. This was broken out into phases, assuming that the north-south connection between Schofield and Wassa is the primary connection to bypass the Grand Ave corridor. And so in total, if you were just reviewing phase 1 for that connection and you split the cost, so every community felt that regionally, all these connections are going to benefit everybody in whole. So the way that cost estimates were split is into thirds in terms of the structure cost. And the other percentage of costs were based on the trail length within the municipality. So, Wassa had the most trail within the municipality versus Weston and Schofield. And so the general items were split proportionally in that manner. However, the city of Wassa pointed out that, well, would we be able to get an alternate cost split with the cost split proportionally based on construction dollars? And so we ran an alternative analysis on the cost with that stipulation. It reduced the city of Wassa's cost, but increased the other costs. So there is a variation in cost, and it's going to be up to the municipalities to decide how those costs should be apportioned to each community. Next slide, Jamie. Phase 2 was the Village of Weston connector. If you didn't do if the village didn't proceed with their connection at the time the project proceeds, it could be done at a later date. And you would just have a separate cost or could apply for TAP funding as a separate project, a standalone project. Slide. And then phase 3 was in priority. The city of Wassa or Schofield has that public land, and this would be the box culvert and cost split to get people connected to the public land. You see a municipality and TAP funding. This is assuming that the study was funded by the DOT, they would fund future phases of this at an 80-20 split. And so you kind of see what would be recommended as budget numbers for that split. The inflation also projects that this is going to be out till 2031, I believe. So the inflation is 3% per year that the project cost would be extended. Next slide. As a final recommendation to the group, this would be the recommended routes. We would try to eliminate Route 9 off of Grand Ave. The city of Schofield has already built infrastructure and is planning on building a bridge across Business 51 by the railroad tracks that would extend people up Grossman Drive to the end of Grossman Drive. So they're already in pursuit of getting people to this corridor. The Village of Weston, you could potentially eliminate Route 15 by routing people onto this trail network and get people up to Wassa as future Trail 9 and future Trail 15. Slide, Jamie. Schedule with the feasibility study, we're planning on wrapping this up in October 2024. The next transportation DOT cycle is in October 2025, so a year from now. You'd have an estimated engineering, railroad, real estate phase that would go from 2026 if awarded TAP funding, and that would extend out to 2028. Estimated begin construction would be 2029 and ending, and this would assume that the whole project goes in an expedited manner. One of the things driving the schedule is that you have willing property owners, and if that property ever changes hands, you might not have willing people. So right now is kind of the time where if you have people willing to work with you, it might be wise to try to move this project forward and then get that in mind. So recommended next steps, we have, communities, needing to talk about phasing, methodology for cost splits, budget years and design of construction of the project, community cost splits, strategy for funding applications, strategies for engaging philanthropic organizations, maintaining relations with the property owners. This is a few years out there, so just somebody to maintain and let them know what's happening. Ongoing maintenance would also be another thing to discuss amongst the municipalities, have a memorandum of understanding for how all those are gonna work, and then just prepare the grant funding applications for the next step. Next slide, Jamie.
How many more slides do you have?
We're like, this is the last one.
Okay.
So wrapping up here. Funding sources, TAP, STP Urban could be an option. There's the recreational trails program or Knowles Nelson program, private funding, and then just local municipality, TID funding. Next slide, Jamie. Any comments, questions on results of the study? I'm also willing to come back if there's any follow-up or provide any supplemental information aside from what the detail in the report.
Have you met with Schofield and Weston?
This is our last roadshow tour. So,
Okay,
yes, we presented to the city of Schofield, city of Wausau, and the Wausau MPO.
and what was their feedback?
Mark, do you want to summarize?
There was just maybe some concern, maybe looking at a little bit more alternative in some aspects of the project, but in whole, I think those, two committees that we presented to, including the MPO, I think there's, definitely an agreement that yes, this would make a great connection. But knowing the cost, how does the funding play a part in it, and how does this connection work with the other jurisdictions? One question I think that I have is not knowing Weston well enough in the future connection with the Mountain Bay Trail. I think bringing this jurisdictional trail, including the Mountain Bay Trail connection into it, is a key part to it for not just this region, but for the entire state.
I guess I was looking at this and I see where you've lumped the town and the village of Weston together.
Yes, we were hoping, and we should have, it was my error. I was hoping that they would have been here tonight to review.
Yeah,
and
but I
see
mean,
that
you got the cost and of the whole trail of that is Weston town / village under one category, and I guess there's a big section that's town. Along Northwestern Avenue. I mean, our lot lines quit right past the heading towards Wausau by that curve.
And that's something that we reviewed in the comprehensive plan on, the town and village working together on recreational facilities. This, I think, long-term would benefit the village of Weston, and the town really wouldn't have the fundings based on the amount of property that the town has in it to pay for it. That should be something that you guys as communities talk about and see can it be funded, with the town applying for an application or not. So
I'm not sure how it would work for the village of Weston to fund a town of Weston project with village of Weston money. That would be a little bit of a draw.
Yeah, the whole funding piece, as far as the cost breakdown in the section that's in the township, I think we can kind of break that down and find out which section of boardwalk or trail is in there to break it down. But I think more so right now, moving forward, we'll have to work through some of those agreements through MOAs and find out just how those funding pieces go together. when we go to apply for those pieces.
You know,
So, if we just assume the town of Weston, village of Weston line in here, so that's roughly what, 1.1 million bucks? Is that right? For the 80% tap and STP, just roughly? Phase one and phase two?
Yeah, so the the summary I gave you, the overall total was Village of Weston, Town of Weston was 5.3 million, 5,285,000.
So we're, alternative one, that number doesn't include STP or TAP funding.
I didn't do additional splits on that over, if you wanted to split it 80-20 and.
No, that's okay. I was just trying to get an understanding of the money. And then, so Wausau and Weston are both in the middle of their budget cycles. So how would this funding play out in that budget cycle? Jamie?
It would not play out in this budget cycle because we've
Okay.
already established our capital improvement plan.
All right.
But I think still a planning phase that we would be in for this for a little while. I don't know that we're looking to assign funding next year to it.
If we were to apply for a grant, the actual application for the grant. Just say it's $10,000. Would any portion of that, would you have parks or city funds to help pay for professional services?
Would that be divided between all of the municipalities or would 8 to
Right.
10 be ours only?
Don't,
If it was divided between all the municipalities, I think we would entertain it through parks to have the grant completed, but the grant's not due now till next October, right?
October. 20.
Okay.
Okay, so then when would, just looking forward, when does this reappear in our budget cycle?
Well, if you did receive a grant, you probably would have 2 years to construct.
No, it would have
Design.
it'd probably just be
Design.
design, you do it in sections where you do design, get the design and geotech funded first. And then go for the remaining construction once it's designed and.
And you're talking tap only though. The Knowles Stewardship and Rivers Trails are due in May.
Correct, this study was geared more towards, what can you get for tap funding, which is an 80-20 split. The other funding sources, you could use the study for it, but Knowles Nelson would be like a 50-50 split if you wanted to, try to get a section of trail. You pretty much gotta do the whole length, because there's really no other, alternate connections.
If we have some land acquisition costs, we need stewardship funds.
So at least next year.
So there isn't a direct ask today?
No.
It's just an educational, okay.
well, great presentation. I guess I'd like to know more if, Schofield and Wausau, if they're on board.
I think, if we can get a commitment of some sort that applying for the grant's a good idea. Schofield would definitely be on board with continuing forward. We funded the study just in hopes to find out whether or not it was feasible. And which routes are the most practical. Now that we know that, I think are hopeful that, with the study that it is possible, costs are, always a factor, but we still want to make these connections to, improve the area.
So we can't take any action. It was not put on the agenda for an action item tonight. So it was just for a presentation. So if it's something that you want to bring back, we would put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
And maybe have a representative from each municipality here.
I think that's what we decided as a next step for us, if we could, after these presentations were done, that we could get some, discussions going on the next step.
Coming. Number 7, discussion on Yellow Banks Disc Golf Course.
So, Wassair Disc Golf enthusiasts were invited to the meeting. I had confirmation that they would be showing up for the meeting tonight. Unfortunately, nobody from there has shown up for the meeting tonight. And they'd be pivotal in the discussion as far as future maintenance, timeline for completion of items, et cetera. So, at this point, I don't have a lot to report as far as that. It is being maintained to a minimal aspect, like stated in my RFC, that Wedge does do a big portion of the maintenance on it. But it is still ultimately a village asset. So as far as moving forward, I mean, we'll do what we can to maintain it better, but continue to work with Wedge if they're available to continue. I know they have a lot of members, but they, as always, volunteers are tough.
So then should we table this until they can show up?
Yep, just defer it actually,
Okay.
because tabling means we take it up later tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So deferring would be future.
For the next meeting,
Motion, Barb?
yes.
Second. Okay, motion by Ermeline, second by Clark. Any more in discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion passed. Number 8, discussion and possible action pickleball courts.
So you all received the RFC. You also saw the link to the survey that Wausau Area Pickleball put out. I did send you the survey results, with the exception of there was some items missing. So if you see, there was multiple questions that said other and said, please specify. And there was no responses. There was nothing included. Also, question 10 was, is there anything else you would like to share? I think there were 11 comments. So I did correspond with Judy Knoll. And apparently the firewall she has in place would not allow her to forward those other items as far as the survey. She did say that she would send us that as soon as she could, if you want to see the remaining responses to the survey. There's still a question, as we brought up at the last meeting, was how this site got put in as a site. I mean, we talked about Mockmuller and we talked about Prohaska. We talked about Mockmuller extensively as we went through, the court planning and all that, and the ideal location, screening. We had a trustee that was totally up for it, and then all of a sudden here we are looking at other alternatives. So I think it was, last month was Prohaska due to proximity to the highway, ease of access, et cetera. Like I said, unfortunately, we're not sure where the Yellow Bank site came into play. Because the infrastructure, I mean, at Mockmuller, Prohaska, any other site, infrastructure still has to go in. I mean, if we do Mockmuller, we're still gonna add bathrooms, shelter on the north side. The current bathrooms on the south end are not gonna suffice. If we put in Prohaska, of course, we have to add sewer, water. I mean, sewer and water at the site, but it still has to be expanded. The facilities need to be built. No different than the driving range, but which I said, look at as an alternative. I mean, Yellow Banks, the south side, yes, it has 2 individual unisex bathrooms, but if you're serving a tournament of 150 plus people, those 2 bathrooms probably not serve it. So I did provide as much information as I could, as far as, knowing what was going on there.
I guess I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess the rhetorical question is, why do we keep revisiting this? So we spent X amount of months working on the court, and then we directly worked with trustee Hushang on Mockmuller, and then we worked more on the design for Mockmuller. And this body said, yep, let's go ahead, let's do it at Mockmuller. Yep, we like your design. But since then, I mean, last month we entertained a discussion about Prohaska, which this body said, yeah, no, that's a whole other thing. And now this month, we are coming back and we're being offered up this idea of yellow banks. And so I think that this is, for me, becoming this is becoming an exercise in bad faith. So we agreed to an idea and they've changed the goalpost and said, no, we want Prohaska. And now they've changed the goalpost again and introduced a survey to their members that introduces a point of discussion that can only make us look like villains when we say, no, we don't want to do it at Yellow Banks, because we had no pre-information that they were going to ask this. And in regards to Yellow Banks specifically, I oppose the pickleball courts being there, one, for the bad faith exercise that this has become, and two, that park is successful in and of itself right now without any additions. People use it all the time. And three, adding pickleball there will only risk putting pollution in the river, right? So if we have 150 people there, water bottles are going to get loose, wrappers are going to get loose, and we're increasing the risk of pollution in that waterway. So I mean, I think that we should simply continue down the task of putting pickleball courts if they want to at Mockmuller. But I mean, what's, you know, if we say no to Yellow Banks tonight, or if we say that we're not interested in that, then does the goalpost move again?
Well, in my opinion, I think they're thinking that Mockmuller is off the beaten path. They want something off the highway, and that's where Prohaska came in. That's where I think Yellow Banks is coming in. I'm just assuming, but I'm thinking that's where those ideas are coming from, but I don't know. They're not here, so we can't ask them. So-
And without getting too in-depth in the conversation about that site, it was more about, do you even want to entertain this discussion? Like, let's not go down this rabbit hole
Not really.
if you're not even interested in this discussion. I mean, we know where the committee stood in the previous discussion, so, I mean, do we need to go in depth? If you don't want to entertain even, then I don't think we should discuss further.
Good question.
Yes.
Where were they gonna put it up? Where are they going with
Well,
it?
Sean, pull up your picture.
Yeah, so I did share a really crude thing I put together really quickly. And it was just basically putting together what the square footage would be for a 100-stall parking lot. It's 30,000 square feet. And then if you want 12 courts, 29,000 square feet, right? I sent Trina because she was asking some questions. And then a 100 by 40 shelter, which is another 4,000 plus square feet. So there's approximately 67,000 square feet available south of the current well house with the restrooms. So there is room, but that would be sized down from 16 courts to 12, and it would be very tight. So you'd have approximately 130 parking stalls. But you also, if you understand the site, you've seen the site, it is very tight. I mean, they don't need a ton of room for the pickleball courts, but obviously the parking, et cetera, infrastructure that would be needed to build it up.
The only thing is that I know there's only two, but that at least they would have the bathrooms, but I can't see trying to, I don't know.
I couldn't see it either, Barb, that's why I had to ask. So it really is wedged in between potentially the well home and our property line.
Yeah, we have fence.
So, I mean, so it's,
Your cows like that noise, right?
you know, it might
How
well,
many of those pickleball things are gonna go in your field?
All right,
yeah, right.
Okay,
okay, let's move forward,
yes.
please. Let's get to the good part.
Okay, what else, did we want
Okay,
any action
so-
just to not,
No, if you're not interested in discussing it further, Michael's got something.
Go ahead, Michael,
Thanks.
real quick.
So I guess maybe to Dino's point a little earlier, we did have direction at one point as staff to work on a pickleball design at Mockmiller Park. So I guess one of the questions I have, and I guess is one of the discussions I've had with trustee Zagami is, you know, kind of like Kennedy Park. It was always the villages, my stance, my understanding from this committee was, you know, we would pay for the support structures, right? Like the parking lot, the bathrooms, things like that. But when it comes to the actual facilities for the user group, we'd be looking to the user groups to fund those. So I guess if we have a pickleball organization saying, we don't want this location, we want this one. I guess as staff, how much more effort do we put into the location they say they don't like versus a location they do like? I mean, are we just at a pause until there's an agreement
I
or?
feel like we're at a pause because
Okay.
I feel like they can't decide, their group can't decide really what they want. And so for us to take
Yeah.
any real action moving forward, it has to wait on them to come back to us and say,
Yep,
we
but
wanna abandon this. I mean, they could come, they could be like, oh, we don't wanna do it at all then.
yeah,
So
so
then
so I
it
guess,
would-
yeah, so that's my
You
point,
should
like,
not-
as the staff member with the staff working on this, I would just say, okay, we're pausing it, and then I didn't want, 4 months later, somebody be like, hey, where are we at on this? Are we done with it? So,
Until they decide if they want Mock Miller
Right.
Park or not, I guess.
So put it back on them. I mean,
Yeah,
and you have, I looked at the numbers, so 88 respondents. 59% were Yellow Banks, so you have to take that into account too. So 59% of 88 respondents. It's not a big pool that you're grabbing from for those responses. Just if you're looking at that.
So we all agreed on Mock Miller and that's where it stands.
It's where it's
Okay.
at, as far as I'm concerned.
Perfect. Okay. Moving on to number 9, discussion only update on the We All Have a Part to Play in the New Era of Kennedy Park Capital Campaign.
Gerald is here if you want to come up to the table. We did have a series of materials that were in the packet. Just maybe want to walk us through?
Absolutely. So this first piece is the ask letter. And we created this in collaboration with Jamie, and Sarah, and finalized this. And so this piece provided a digital file, a Word document, so it can be customized to send to whomever you want and from whomever you want. So it's got everything, all the basic information, the campaign headline, et cetera, and then a nice little QR code for ease of scanning and call to action to donate. The next piece is for tomorrow already. It's tomorrow. And that's the groundbreaking. And this was just an invite that Jamie wrote up and we laid out and designed for. And again, contains the campaign headline and all that similar language. And then the QR code as well, because we want to ask people to donate no matter what we're sending them. So this invite went out to, I'm not sure how many people, but a large number.
Plus, it's posted as part of our weekly newsletter and Facebook pages, so we didn't require an RSVP, so we'll see how many people we get, but it was community-wide. Everyone's was welcome to attend. And Parks and Rec Committee would be introduced. I'm assuming everybody can make it tomorrow, but will be introduced at the beginning of the remarks.
And we'll be there videoing and taking pictures as well. The next piece is the actual 7-foot by 7-foot sign that is at the site now, I'm assuming. It went up.
It is.
Where is it? If I drive by on the way home, where is it?
It's on the west side of the skate park.
Nice, perfect, awesome.
It's at the approximate location of home plate of the first field to be constructed.
Perfect. So this went up, we were able to implement this awesome rendering by REI Engineering, along with their phased piece as well. So we took advantage of all that space. And again, the QR code, because we want people to donate, and all the same similar campaign language throughout the piece as well. So it doesn't matter if you're sending a letter out or putting up a 7-by-7 sign out there, it needs to look and feel the same like the campaign. So thanks again to everybody at the village for helping out with that.
And the sign after tomorrow and the groundbreaking, we'll move to a more public location. It's a little hard to see for where it is now. It's placed for the groundbreaking, but after that, we'll move it someplace else within the park.
And then this piece is a double-sided flyer Again, all the same campaign language, some imagery provided by Jamie and Sarah, so thank you again for that. And then in this one, we've got a number of ways that people can donate along with the dollar amounts, which is kind of a start. This piece is a flyer. We've also got a poster and a postcard in the mix that we'll be creating as well. So again, all the similar campaign language, the same look and feel, et cetera, et cetera. And then.
Hold on, before you play the video, can I?
Yes.
Just 2 seconds?
Go for it.
Okay, we've done a ton of work in the last, I don't know, is it 30 days since the last meeting that happened here?
Daily,
What was that?
daily.
Sometimes hourly. So I just want to give the group kudos to the work that's been done the last 30 days. We asked for groundbreaking to happen this year. On that first field, it's happening. We asked for a webpage, a landing page. That happened. The village created a landing page. There is a donor page for that QR code from the foundation. That happened. We asked REI to come up with some blueprints and some fly-throughs that you're going to see next. That happened in the last 30 days, along with a video that we just got like 30 seconds ago that you're gonna get to see too. That happened. We asked for a small group because this large group wasn't working. And that kind of stalled us out in the last 4 months.
We had no point of contact is
Um,
what was happening, I
Yeah,
would
so
say.
we got a small group together that has worked, and we are literally talking every hour on the hour these last 30 days. Mike and Jim met about lights. I mean, those are the fine details that we're starting to kind of get to. Where do those lights go and how do they get placed around the field? And we asked for the media to start knowing about this project, and Jim did an interview today with Channel 7, pre-limiting, for that groundbreaking for tomorrow. That's step one. All of this is leading up to step one, which is tomorrow. Step two is the fundraising strategic plan part of this and kind of where we go from here. But we asked the village to be the first dollar in, you did. We asked for the village to do the groundbreaking tomorrow, which you are. Thank you, because now we can move on to that kind of step 2, 3, and 4. I want to tell the village and have it on record too, because we asked you to do the first dollar in, which you did at 700,000 for that first field.
$766,166.11.
And DC Everett Baseball just committed the second dollar in, and the invoice is done for 25,000. So that is in as the second dollar in. All before tomorrow. All right, go Jamie.
And the final thing I'll say before we show this video is that now that we've got this campaign, this through line or thread, whatever you want to call it, we all have our part to play. Now all of this creative content really starts to flow and we can do just about anything. And I think this video is a result of that.
Drum roll? Maybe drum roll?
Oh,
It was just there, just
Oh.
waiting. 1 second.
Yeah, that edit to MP4.
Why does it say that? Refresh.
Sounds better on huge studio speakers in your basement. So if anybody has those, go home and look. And as Sarah alluded to, today we received an incredible animated version of all of REI's renderings. It's absolutely phenomenal, and now we're kind of licking our chops to start including that into some stuff. So very cool. So thanks everyone at the Village for your collaboration in the last 30 days. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. Any comments, discussion?
No, but
You
every
like
time I
it?
yeah, every time I see a picture, I think how massive that looks.
I'm gonna see if I can just,
I have the video saved in the P drive.
oh. I downloaded it, so.
Okay.
So after today, and we can watch this, there's no music here, so.
There's no music, yeah, it's just,
After tomorrow, we'll say after tomorrow, this, second phase of this will begin, and that's the strategic planning part of the fundraising. We have 2 donors that are willing and interested to be that second and third donor. That's really exciting because that's before we've even released this. Tomorrow, probably about 3 o'clock, this video will be released so that it's right before that groundbreaking. And then the excitement happens because then it's visual. Like until you see that right there, look at that. That's what we've been dreaming about for a couple of years. A softball, baseball, hockey, and skateboarding have all kind of seen progress up until this point. They have been included in all of our discussions, minus the hourly emails back and forth, which we have done in the last 30 days. Kudos to Gerald and the marketing firm and the team and the videographer that made this vision come to life. Because until you see this, there's a lot of talking points, and now we've got some visuals behind it. Dino.
Cheryl, so there's a lot more footage, right?
Yeah, we have a bunch of footage. We still want to shoot some more, you know?
Yeah, because as you know, you start to break it out over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of other stuff, yeah, so.
Yeah,
okay.
and part of what I would like to do, I made a little list last week after talking to the team, and I want to interview stakeholders from baseball, softball, hockey, skate
Yeah,
park.
oh no, yeah, don't
Exactly,
worry. Yeah.
exactly. And then, imagine them talking over this rendering from REI, for instance, that starts to really come to life. I want to hear those stories. We want to do, video for each sport, that type of thing. So, and then, when springtime comes again or whenever, if we want to go back out and shoot some more live action sports, and I still want to do a little stylized narrative.
Right, yeah,
With
yeah.
the kids, because kids are fun, and get them on camera and talking about how excited they're about this stuff. So
Yeah, like that was one of the things that we talked about right away in the beginning, was sort of getting, why is this important to me as a 12-year-old?
Exactly.
So, Mike, so the phases, I know you've given us handouts and stuff.
Yeah.
Can we do something to make that look cool to the public? Cause you're an engineer.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
I'm not saying you're not cool, but.
yeah, no, I get it. I mean, that's why, like these renderings and, it helps bring it to life.
Yeah.
I mean, I forget, maybe it was Jamie when we first got one of these, she's like, is this what you're envisioning? I said, yeah, that's what it looks like in my head.
Right.
She's like, that doesn't look at all like I thought it would,
And so
so.
then if we can break out, sort of like to bring the phase 1 and those planning things into the visual style that Gerald put together here, is sort of what what we're looking ahead for, because at some point, somebody's gonna be cool and go, all right, so how can I pay for phase 3, right? And then, okay, we wanna have a cool document to show that wonderful person.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, all right, cool.
I can help somebody do that.
Yeah, that, just, yeah,
Mike, you get us whatever you need. We'll
right,
spice it
yeah,
up, man.
that's right.
So part of the reasoning for choosing this view was it matches up with the phasing plan.
Yes.
So you could actually look at them side by side. That's what's on the sign. And I only know that because somebody explained it to me. I was like, well, how come you chose that view? Well, it's because it's as close to the phasing plan as possible, where you can actually match up the two together.
And just for the committees, remember, these talking points come back to you because you started this project years ago when you made a commitment to the parks in general for all of the village. And those talking points were part of the interview today and will be part of talking points tomorrow. That this is a village park and rec committee that really started this. So thank you for walking this path with us. This is not a short-term goal. This is a phase 3, 5-year plan, 7 or 10-year plan, maybe, depending on where that money comes from. But that allows our kids to continue to play ball or skateboard or play hockey down there.
Yep, and that's been a question with the community, you know, and we have to let them know that it is not, we're not gonna wipe out Kennedy Park. It is going to go in phases so we can continue to play
Now, could it
baseball.
go a lot faster? It absolutely could. It could go faster, but we would still, the intent is still to be able to play baseball and softball there over the next 3 summers. Even if we have the money today.
And this
So,
might
thank
lead
you.
in, sorry, this might lead into number 10. But how do we go about, like, we have this video, we have the marketing material now. How are we going to connect with the community with these materials? You know, are we getting these to all the businesses? What are we doing with this? What are we doing with this marketing?
Yeah, so that feels like that's the next discussion that needs to happen for sure. Whether that's social, whether it's direct mail, whether it's emailing PDFs, so yeah, that plan of attack should be next.
The strategic plan, that's what we've been calling it, is the strategic plan of that. And we had said Dino would be included in those conversations just because of prior expertise with how those items have been disseminated on other projects. It seems to work well to have that connection back to the Parks Committee, and then have that feedback into Parks, so. I don't know that we have all of the strategic plan. I think this is one of those moments where all of us have a little bit of it in our heads and we just need to get it down on paper.
I think this does lead to the next agenda item though, which is the MOU.
Yep.
Which this committee has asked for, you know, for a long time. So Jamie has an MOU created with the fundraising hand portion of this.
So I'll just say number 10, discussion and possible action on Friends of Kennedy Park fundraising memorandum of understanding.
Thank you.
So there wasn't a slightly updated draft. Attorney Edie's office just had a couple more changes for clarifying language, so the updated draft is what you had in the packet. Recommendation tonight would be to the village board for approval that would go at this time in November, because we're through our October meeting, but I'm happy to answer any questions, but it does discuss what would be the responsibilities on behalf of the village and the responsibilities on behalf of the Friends group.
Any questions?
The Friends Group has sent that MOU to the foundation as well. Remember, the foundation is the one housing all of the money for this entire project till the end, forever. Beyond the park project for some of the renovate, upkeep after the fact as well. And the foundation has seen a copy of this, a draft of this, and we approve both from the foundation and from the Friends Group to sign this and have this go forward.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with this. Can we move to send this forward then?
We need a motion?
I don't know.
We would need a
Sean?
motion, but Sean has.
I don't wanna be a stickler, but in 2B, first sentence, ever spelled wrong.
Oh, I thought I corrected that.
I mean, yes, it's a minuscule
Oh,
thing.
I see it. I'll fix
It's a
it.
minuscule thing, but I just wanted to make sure after I read through it, that I'm like, well, we should probably fix that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nerd.
Well, it's better for him to have found it.
Yeah.
Have it written
yeah.
up and then.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Isker, second by Ermeling. Any more in discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. Okay. Possible next meeting date, November 25th, 2024. Topics for future meetings? Any remarks from staff?
I do have a report in the packet, if you have any questions on that. I also did hand out the Kennedy Park 3D rendering to the committee members that didn't get it. You know, the board got it at last meeting. And hope to see you all tomorrow night at 4:30.
Joe, before we go, how much is the pool water heater gonna cost?
What are you talking about?
In your report, it said.
Oh,
It's
the
under
warranty.
Oh, never mind. Cool.
All right.
All right. Remarks from committee members, announcements. Do we have a motion to adjourn? By Ermeline,
Jeez.
a second?
Second.
Second by Easker. Parks and Recs meeting is now adjourned.